Welcome to the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast, where our goal is to help you increase your reputation as a leader, increase your ability to influence others, and increase your ability to fully engage your team to deliver remarkable results. Hi, I'm Holley, a Maxwell Leadership Facilitator and Coach.
And I'm Goede, Executive Vice President with Maxwell Leadership. Welcome and thank you for joining. As we get started, just a quick reminder, visit maxwellleadership.com/executive podcast. There you can fill out a form, leave some content, some questions. That's what we're going to talk about today is stuff that's kind of on our hearts and what we're hearing from leaders in the field. We'd love to be able to serve you in that way as well. Or if you're looking for some training for your team on our 5 levels of leadership, which is our foundational course, we would love to serve you and be able to come and visit and do that on site. We'll even send Perry because Perry's looking for an opportunity to get back on the road. We were just talking about his schedule, so why not? We'll add another one to it.
Going to add to those million miles out there.
That's the million.
It's millions of
plural.
miles.
That's right. That's right. Well, today's topic, I think is interesting the way we're going to phrase this, right? Today we're going to talk about, I don't mind you thinking I'm perfect, right? As a leader, like I don't
actually prefer it.
Yeah, I wish you would look at me as perfect. It doesn't happen at home, so I wish it would happen here at work. And so what we're really talking about today under this title is how do we become more authentic, right? How do we make sure that as we're leading people, we're influencing people, we're serving on teams, we're serving team members, that we come across as authentic. And it's not just something that we have been talking about the last couple months. It's something we've been talking about for a long time. It's foundational to what we do. And authenticity is extremely powerful as a leader.
And I'm trying to think, am I really still surprised in today's world that so many leaders still struggle with this a bit, especially the higher you go? It's like when you're a young leader, a new leader, right out of the gate, first line manager, that type of thing. People expect you to make mistakes and you're not going to know everything. And if you act like you're going to look a little silly acting like you're all perfect there. But the more we get down the road and the more experience we have, I'm noticing some of the folks I coach that they're not that open to the fact of sharing some of their mistakes or sharing some of their need from others and to help and, saying, I don't know, and those types of things. So that's where this came from, thinking about, and there was a phrase of one of the guys I coached said that I feel like I need to be perfect. And I thought, well, I don't want you thinking I'm perfect. And I kind of wish you would. However, what does that do for your leadership if people have that idea that you're trying to, they already know you're not perfect.
Correct. But you're coming across
like you are.
And you want them to have that perception 100%. So I love the play on the title there because, we don't want our team to think that we're perfect. And that'll cause a disconnect, which we're going to get into. So here's where it all starts with becoming an authentic leader. The only way to do that is to truly have extreme self-awareness, or maybe even just begin to have some self-awareness. I was talking to a leader yesterday, and we were just talking about this, where there's an individual on a team that's just completely unaware. And there's some self-awareness that has to develop in there. And so they don't even really know how they come across, like what's it like to be on the other side of their leadership. And so if they don't know who they are, then how are people going to be able to trust them as a leader, as a teammate, whatever that might look like? I read this statistic from Harvard Business Review, and we've talked about this in the past or in one of our trainings, where it says 83% of people that can trust their leader, that they know, hey, that's Perry, the good, the bad, the ugly, they're going to stay. They're going to be engaged. And you start looking at the issue in corporate settings with retention and turnover and all this kind of stuff, and you go, I wonder how much of it, a lot, is tied directly to their leader. We know that, but how much of it because they're just not being authentic because they don't even have self-awareness.
Right. Well, those surveys almost always come back that the number one quality that people look for in a leader that they trust is authenticity, and time and time again. And this idea of self-awareness, I love you just said it, you kind of went by it awfully fast, so I'll come back to it, which was asking yourself the question, what's it like to be on the other side of me? And we do that a lot here. We talk about, are you aware of what it's like to work for you? Are you aware of what it's like to be in your home when you come through the door at the end of the day? Do you understand what your family is experiencing? What are you making them feel? And I teach that one a lot. You're always making them feel something. Are you aware of the emotions you bring out of others? Are you aware of the feelings you bring out of others? And I think this self-awareness it's a discipline. It's not a one-time event. I have to continually be asking myself, what is it that I bring out of people, and what is my effect on them? And it's going to really, this is the central key of all authenticity to me is how aware are you of what you bring on other people?
Well, and it's hard to become self-aware if you're not leading yourself. And we are the hardest person that we will ever
That's right.
try to lead.
Why is that?
I don't know, but I'm the best salesperson I've ever seen for myself ever. One way or another, I can sell myself, right? And so we're not going to be able to lead others unless we figure out what is the rhythm that Chris needs to lead Chris, and get on the inside of what makes me tick, so that I know that I can lead consistently over time. If I can get comfortable with that, if I can become self-aware and I can understand how to lead myself through good, bad, and different, and have people speak into our lives and accountability and coach and inner circles and all of that, then I think we can lead with clarity. I think we can really get comfortable in our skin, as they say, of, hey, this is how I am. This is how I lead. And I love the statement of, if we have lack of clarity in ourselves, right, then there's confusion, and then that leads to failure of my leadership. So I just got to get really clear on what that looks like. Now, some people may take that and go, okay, well, I'm gonna get clear. I'm just gonna be a jerk. Like, that's how I am. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, hey, let's figure out, become self-aware, and then how do you lead yourself to grow through those things so that you get extremely clear and comfortable, and your team can feel that.
I love that. And then thinking past self-awareness, what's next? Number two to me would be, how aware are you of your unique skills and abilities, your strengths and your weaknesses? What is it you do really well? What is it that you don't do so well? And I see a lot of this in leadership. I think it's driven by a personal insecurity that you may have as a leader, that I try to do everything and I try to make it out that I do everything well.
Yeah.
And I don't like the term stay in my lane, but there are things that I do really well, and there are things that people on my team do very well. Am I doing the things that I do well and letting them do the things that they do well? And am I clear? And many leaders don't want to own the fact that they have weaknesses. I've heard John say this when he talks about the 21 laws. He'll say, you're not supposed to be great at all 21.
No.
He said, in fact, there are 4 or 5 that I'm downright not good at, and I have to work on and hire to and get people to be better than me at that. So how do you see that showing up around skills and abilities that you recognize of your own?
Chris Fuller, one of our longtime partners here.
Is that a way of saying he's old?
He is extremely old. He's older than both of us combined, which he doesn't listen to the podcast.
Okay.
He says, you say all the time, and still does, right? Lead where you're strong, team, or put a process and system, where you're weak. And that's what you're saying is, how do we get to that place to where we truly understand who we are, and then know what makes you different, and stay in that lane, and make sure that you kind of own what makes you different. Yeah. Also, thinking about Chris and our partnership with them, we have an incredible training that we do called Teaming for Success. You're very familiar with this. I've delivered it a ton. And, we get into the room and everybody's got different personalities. And so if you're leading authentically, which, by the way, is influence, everyone's leading at some point in time, you are authentically present on that team of how you're wired. And we'll get people that will say, well, what's the best profile
to be a leader?
Yeah. Matter of fact, I just had this conversation with somebody last week. We were talking about the working genius. Yeah. And they go, of all the CEOs, the individual I was talking to actually works for their organization. And of all the CEOs, like, of the 6, right? It's the same thing. It's like, no. It's learning how you're wired, how you're created, and then leading from there. Those are the best leaders. The ones that aren't are very unaware and haven't been able to lead themselves. And so I love, and I know you taught that, and I can see right now 5 stories going through your head about leaders in rooms coming up to you and being like, well, what about this?
Yeah, which of us 16 is...
Yeah. But even before we started today, you and I were talking, and you said, well, one of mine struggles is that I could do this, and I'm probably portraying that. Now I'm aware of that, right? And so you got to kind of grow through that versus being like, well, yeah, no, I'm not aware of that. So it's an extremely fun team building conversations, getting to understand the team a little bit differently. By the way, just quick plug, if you're interested, go back to the website in the form, say you're interested in Teaming for Success. We'd love to come out and do that. But it is so much fun to see people in the room go, Perry finally realizes what we've known for a long time because it just showed up on the data of his personality assessment.
Well, it comes up, I'm an introvert. I can't be, you just gave me an idea. We should do a podcast in a couple of weeks on, can an introvert be a leader?
Ooh, yeah.
Because the personality and temperament.
They probably feel like they can't.
Yeah. And because we are flaming extroverts, we obviously know they can't.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. No, they absolutely can. But let's talk about that more.
Yeah, that's good.
Take it. Number 3, I was just.
Yeah. The next big one as you're thinking about this is, how do you live and communicate your core values? And I'm going to throw this word in here, consistently, so that your team knows what you stand for. What are your non-negotiables as leaders? Like, what's important to you? Because for everybody, it's a little bit different, right? And the reason I threw the word consistency in there is because your team has to know what to expect. Right. And so, again, I'm going to go back saying good, bad, or ugly. They're going to know, and they're going to give you grace when they know that you know that maybe that is not a strength of yours. The other thing, I think, when you live and communicate by your core values consistently, I also think this is huge as a leader to help you with your decision-making filter. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but it allows you to continually say, hey, I'm not perfect. Here I am. This is where I struggle making decisions. The team kind of rallies around me. Okay, I got this one. Next one, team rallies around me. And just being able to do that and know what your core values and be able to communicate that consistently, I think is a game changer.
Yeah, and if your team can't articulate what your core values are, then you're probably not living them. And your values drive your behavior. And if you're, again, go back to self-awareness, and are you aware of what you're broadcasting? And it's coming from your core values, and people, they know. And I love adding the word consistently. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
If you're not, you can't be one way this day and one way another.
No.
To do that.
You have to stay true, right, to who you are through that when you're communicating, when you're making tough decisions. You have to stay true to who you are as a leader, not what's in front of you. And I see a lot of leaders that really will kind of stray away from maybe who they are, depending on the pressure or the size of the decision that they have to make. And I see them sometimes compromise the values of that. And it's just, the team's going to get confused, and it's just going to be a mess.
Well, I'm surprised when we do the 5 levels of leadership, we have a values exercise, determine your personal values. And I always ask, how many of you have never done this exercise? This is the first time, and it's in the 90%. I very rarely see somebody say, yeah, I've actually sat down and thought about what are my core values. And then they say, well, why are we doing this? Because you're broadcasting, and people are trying to make a decision. Are they going to follow you because they want to or because they have to? And your values, your behaviors make me either want to or not want to.
And the first way to disconnect from your team, or have your team disconnect from you, is for there to be an example of how you're living out being opposite of what you're saying your core values are. Yeah.
All right. Number 4 is the big one. I think I teach this a lot, and a lot of people struggle with it, but are you practicing vulnerability and transparency? The vulnerability word is really a pretty big word in leadership these days around, and why would you want to be vulnerable? What does that even mean? Most people would think it means weak, but it's not. It's if you ever see a leader being vulnerable, it's absolute 100% courage. And it is saying that I need help. I don't do everything right. I need you. I don't know the answer. I made a mistake. These types of things. And it's such a critical thing to do, that it is the defining thing that says I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
And it really speaks to people.
When leaders do that, to your point, it's not a weakness. It is being like, it's okay to say, you say this, you go, hey, the 3 words that every leader should use a little bit more of is, I don't know. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so it is, it's not a weakness at all. It's actually courage and saying, hey man, I missed that. This is another perfect example. I woke up yesterday morning and I thought about something that I had told a team member on Friday about a certain price point. And it just hit me in the head. And I was like, I gave him the wrong number. So I couldn't go back to sleep. So I got up and I sent an email really early. I was like, hey, let's talk first thing this morning. When you get this, I messed up. I gave you the wrong number. And if you've already sent out the proposal, it's on me. I got it. I'll eat it. But if not, let's talk about how we can cover it up. So it was like, hey, that's on me, like completely. And it was small, but I knew that I was wrong. And so just come to the table and be like, here it is, right? Like, it's okay to do that to your team, because then they're going to know that you're being a little bit vulnerable with them. You have to, and if you want it from them, then you better model it.
Yeah, and I was going to say, and so a lot of people would think, well, I look weak, or I look dumb, or no. You know what you just did? You built trust.
Yeah.
You built trust with my leader, and I trust my leader because they're willing to say that they were wrong. I actually am. That's attractive to me. I want to be around people versus somebody who says, well, I'm never wrong, which nobody ever says that. They just act it out. And Brene Brown's been very clear in her research that vulnerability drives trust. And it's a number one facilitator of trust, is knowing that you and I are a lot more alike, because I know I make mistakes. Now you're saying you make mistakes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic.
And your team will feel empowered to keep moving, and they won't feel paralyzed because they know, oh man, Chris made a mistake and he just said, hey, it's on me. If I make a mistake, so it's not going to paralyze movement or any of their momentum.
And it's safe to come to you and say, I made a mistake.
And you made a mistake. That's right.
A lot of compassion.
Well, the fifth one is, how do we build genuine connection? For us, this is a level 2 skill set. Authentic leadership is always personal. It's always relational. There's a connection there. It's not, as we talk about in the 5 levels of leadership, it's not positional. And so you can't lead, or what we like to say on the negative side of level 1, command and control from that position level of influence, and think there's going to be any type of genuine connection that's in there. So one of the things that I want to encourage us to do is that at level 2, we talk about increasing your influence through relationships. Yes, we want to build relationships, but it's deeper than that. It's about connection, and all kinds of things connect versus just building a relationship, which to some people are going to be like, I don't have time to build a relationship. I don't care to build Okay, that's fine. But there are all kinds of ways that you can connect with your people and it feel genuine.
But I've heard leaders say, I don't want to be best friends with people I work with. I don't want to have this. I don't want to generate this kind of friendship because I'm the boss. I might have to do hard things. And I just think that's a cop-out. I think that there are boundaries. And if you're a great leader that builds great relationships, has solid connections with people, you also establish boundaries that we understand where, what's appropriate behavior around these. I can still have a direct conversation with you and let you know I love you and I care about you, but I'm going to tell you the hard things. This is what great leaders do. And so having that connection, a great word you added in there to do that, I think is a beautiful thing. One more before we start looking to wrap this up, but I've seen this taught, and I didn't do it. I've started doing it, but developing a habit of self-reflection. And I wonder what your thoughts were on that. Is that the teaching on this is that if you spend 3 to 5 minutes daily, is most helpful, just reflecting on your day. I generally use hey, what went well? What didn't go well? What did I learn?
Yeah.
What would I do differently tomorrow in the same situation? Just running through the day and the meetings and the people and the interactions, just reflecting on how I did. They say that this drives compassion from a leader.
Yeah.
I wonder what you think about that. That's a big word for a very small habit.
Well, and I want to come back because I think the way we're wrapping this up with this last one around self-reflection, I think this, if we're being true to ourselves and we're leading ourselves well, I think this leads back to the very first thing we talked about, which was you got to develop self-awareness. Mm-hmm. And as you begin to reflect, and if you're honest with yourself about how I acted, how did I respond? Mm-hmm. To your point, what did I do well? How would I maybe have shown a little bit more understanding in a situation? One of my, in my Right Path profile, one of my intense traits is very logical. So I have a hard time sometimes when it doesn't logically make sense to me, right, to stay connected. And so am I taking time at the end of the day to reflect back and go, man, when I was in that moment with Perry and having that conversation, like it didn't logically make sense to me. Did I stay engaged? Was I still curious? Mm-hmm. What was that? And if you can ask those questions to yourself in that reflection moment and be true to yourself, then then you will begin to become aware, and through some learned behaviors, be able to lead different. John is a huge fan of reflection on experiences, not the experiences that you learn from, it's the reflection from it. So I would just challenge all of our leaders that are out there as we're thinking about this and making sure that you're being as authentic as you possibly can. What are the lessons learned during your reflection time? And I love it's the last one. And then acting on them. Take notes. Act on them, have somebody hold you accountable to it. That will begin to shift some of your thoughts. and your team's thoughts about how authentic you really are.
Right. And the research on it says that, first of all, if you're under the delusion that you're perfect and you don't mind people thinking you're perfect and you come across like you're a little too perfect,
you're listening to the wrong podcast.
Yeah, people people are not drawn to that. And you don't really have a lot of compassion for others, because if I'm acting like in my mind, I've got it all together, and I look at you and you don't, I'm not a compassionate person. I might even come down on you. Like, why can't you get your act together?
Yeah.
But if I self-reflect daily and say, wow, I could have done that better. Like, you gave a great example. I gave a wrong pricing. I didn't think through that. I got to go back to that person. Yeah. All of a sudden, you are, I always tell people, I say, you have a choice every day as a leader to open up or armor up. And a lot of times when I was coming up, it was like Iron Man, put on the armor and don't look like anything affects me. However, if I reflect and say, yeah, I could have done that better. Well, I didn't use the right tone with that. Or I didn't. Then when you see other people struggle, you have a lot of compassion, because hey, me too. Me too. And that's where it comes from.
That's
Go
good.
ahead and wrap us up.
Well, authenticity is not a leadership style. It's an attribute that leaders should have. And as Perry said, oftentimes it's number one on the survey. But it's not a leadership style. But what it is a leadership advantage. I think if you can figure that out, I think you'll have an advantage over others that choose not to. Because, by the way, everything I think we're talking about, I was listening to us in my head while I was talking. I was like, yep, I've had a leader like that. Yep. And there's probably a lot of our listeners or watchers right now going, my leader's just like that right now. They're completely armored up. None of this resonated with them. I don't want to be like that. So we're going to take the lessons we talked about today. So it can be a leadership advantage for you. And when people believe you, here's the key. When they believe you, when you're authentic, when they believe you, they will also believe in you. And there are things that as you lead teams, it's going to be tough. You're going to go through some good times, but you're going to go through a lot of bad times. You're going to go through some stagnant times, and they're going to buy into you as the leader before they buy into a certain vision or a mission. And so if you want them to believe in you, they have to believe you.
Right.
So
fantastic. Great stuff. And we mentioned several times during this conversation some of the offerings we have, like Teaming for Success, the 5 levels of leadership, the 360 leader. If you want to know more about any of those, if you have a comment or a question about that, you can always connect with us at maxwellleadership.com/executive podcast. You can leave a comment or a question. We always love hearing from you. We're very grateful you'd spend this time with us today. That's all from the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast.